Welcome, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Ian, this is Opinion. This year marks the 50th anniversary of one of the most beloved theme park attractions of any in all the world, and one of my personal favorites, Disneyland Park's The Haunted Mansion. This amazing ride has earned a fan following of thousands of guys and ghouls all over the world. And to help celebrate, I've conjured up this video of 50 things you're dying to know about the Haunted Mansion. How much do you know about this famous Disneyland attraction? It's time to put your knowledge to the test. So let's begin our little tour.
There's no turning back now.
The look of the house itself was inspired by both the Shipley Lydecker House in Baltimore, Maryland, and the Winchester Mansion in Northern California, which Walt Disney personally visited. Most, if not all, the epitaphs adorning the gravestones on the hillside in the yard of the mansion are actually nods to famous Imagineers who worked on the ride. The voice of the ghost host was provided by legendary voice actor Paul Frees. As well as his work on the Haunted Mansion, he also provided voices for other attractions like Pirates of the Caribbean and Journey Through Inner Space. He's also given voice to dozens of cartoon characters and a whole bunch of the Rankin Bass stop-motion animated classics. He also did character voices in The Last Unicorn and The Animated Hobbit, giving us 2 more reasons to love him. The animatronic crow character you see featured throughout the ride was gonna be the original narrator, but once it was decided he didn't have quite a compelling enough presence, they made the ghost host your tour guide. The mansion itself is topped with an architectural feature called a widow's walk, which in Victorian times was a place where young brides could get a high vantage point lookout to try to spot their husbands coming back from long journeys at sea. And many of them never returned. On a number of tombstones throughout the ride, you might have noticed the Latin phrase memento mori or memori morti. Loosely translated, it means remember that you're gonna die too. And it was a way for historically classical people to keep their mortality in check. A lot of the light fixtures in the attic and throughout the graveyard are actually just modified paint cans with rectangular openings cut into them to control the light source. The living features throughout the Haunted Mansion, like the faces in the woodwork and the arms holding torches, were actually inspired by John Cocteau's film version of Beauty and the Beast. It's rumored there are several hidden Mickeys throughout the mansion, but the most prominent and popular one is on the banquet table in the ballroom, cleverly constructed of dinner plates. The escaping ghoul in the observatory is voiced by Imagineer Atencio, who not only wrote the story for the Haunted Mansion, but the lyrics to Grinning Ghosts as well. Let me out of here! In the 1980s, the mansion featured a performer in the corridor of doors in the form of a costumed knight, who would basically scare the crap out of guests as they rode by in their doom buggies. This added feature proved a little too scary for guests, and a little too lethal for the performer themselves, as many people who played the knight got punched and smacked. Contrary to what some people still believe, the ghosts in the ballroom are not holograms, but in fact an optical illusion from the 1800s known as Pepper's Ghost, where you're seeing the reflection of a lit object hidden somewhere else. The birthday cake on the ballroom banquet table is topped with 13 candles. The attic bride, Constance Hatchaway, collects a pearl necklace from each of her 5 unfortunate husbands. By the time you see her ghost in the attic, you'll notice 5 pearl necklaces hanging around her neck. The dinner plates on the dining room table are manufactured by a well-respected dinnerware company called Spode, and the pattern is called Italian. This particular pattern from the 1800s is still popular, and they do make reissues of this particular dinnerware from time to time. I might have come across them at Marshall's and bought service for 4. God, I'm a nerd. The drinking goblets on the ballroom table are called King's Crown Cranberry Flashware. Woo! A cranberry-colored coating is applied to the outside of the glass and flash-fired to the surface of the goblet. Yes, I have 4 of these as well. Who are you to judge me? Shut up. We all know it's the ghost host hanging in the rafters of the elevator, but there's also a full-body portrait of the ghost host hanging halfway down the corridor of doors, where he's featured holding an axe and still wearing the noose around his neck from which he cut himself down. Ugh. One of the giant glass panels in the ballroom, which aids the optical illusion being presented there, was shot decades ago, allegedly by some sort of gun or BB gun by a pranky guest. It would be too expensive to take the panels out and replace them, so instead the Imagineers just stuck a spider over the bullet hole and made a spider web. It's on one of the panels closer to the organist, just before you start to turn and go into the attic. The upper windows of the mansion used to feature a wandering candle effect, so it looked like someone was searching through the house from one end to the other. Nowadays, the effect can still be seen from the queue line in one of the windows at the back of the house. There's another optical illusion used in the ballroom, which the French call trompe l'oeil. This is a technique in which imagery is painted very realistically to create the illusion that the objects being depicted actually exist in 3 dimensions. In the graveyard, just past the singing busts and to the left, there's one gravestone that continues to shimmy even after the ride has been powered down and all the animatronics have been turned off. It's this one right here. Supposedly the Imagineers gave this single gravestone its own separate power source, just to give the ride operators a little spook after hours. Some time ago in the portrait hall just to the left of the elevator exit in the corner, there was water damage to the wall. But because they no longer manufacture that type of velveteen wallpaper, the pattern had to be hand painted back on after the damage was fixed. The Omnimover track inside the Haunted Mansion carries a cozy 131 doom buggies. Imagineer Leota Toombs provided the face for the mystical spirit featured in the seance room, while voice actress Eleanor Audley, known for Maleficent and Lady Tremaine, provided the sound of the famous incantations. Imagineer and Disneyland art director Kim Irvine not only designed the new Pet Cemetery area for the front lawn of the mansion, she's also the daughter of Leota Toombs. The funeral hearse in front of the mansion was rumored for many years to have carried the body of Brigham Young to his final resting place. While this rumor was eventually put to rest, so to speak, the exact origins of the hearse are still not completely pinned down. It may have appeared in several old Western movies. To coincide with the opening of the attraction in 1969, Disney also released a record entitled Story and Song from the Haunted Mansion. On it, you can actually hear the Raven do some narration, and it also mentions and talks about the Hatbox Ghost. That's a whole other video. Have you ever wondered the names of the 5 singing busts in the graveyard? Well, from left to right, they are Rollo Rumpkin, Uncle Theodore, Cousin Algernon, Ned Nubb, and Phineas P. Pock. The singing voice of the operatic female ghost in the graveyard was provided by soprano Lulie Jean Norman, who also did the background vocals on the original Star Trek theme song. The changing pictures in the hallway just outside the elevator actually have titles. In the order that you pass them, they're known as the Weircat Lady, Edward the Black Prince, the Aging Man, which is also referred to as Master Gracie, the Flying Dutchman, and Medusa. The super spooky and disembodied wolf howl that you hear throughout the ride actually belongs to a spectral wolf which is in the graveyard. If you look up on a hill just past the band, you'll see him. Even though the ride opened in 1969, it uses some of the sound effects featured on the Disneyland 1964 album, Thrilling, Chilling Sounds of the Haunted House. I mean, you didn't think I wasn't going to have this too, right? A mirror effect is used in the endless hallway to make it look like it stretches on forever, and the candelabra which floats there is painted black on the backside so it won't reflect in the mirror. The miniature spirit featured at the end of the ride as you exit is affectionately known as Little Leota, but it's not called that because it's supposed to be a tiny version of Madame Leota. On this character, Leota Toombs provided the face and the voice, and most people agree that it's supposed to be a miniature bride. A full ride through the mansion from the moment you sit down to the moment you get up clocks in at about 6 minutes, provided no pranky spirits interrupt your tour. The Pet Cemetery in the front lawn of the mansion that you pass while in line was added in the 1990s. The original Pet Cemetery is over on the far right side of the mansion, hidden away and just outside the wheelchair exit. You may have seen this stretching portrait in the elevator. Imagineers added some details to link this to Constance Hatchaway in the attic by having her hold a rose in the portrait of her and her husband, and naming the husband George Hightower. The groundskeeper that you see shivering outside the gates of the graveyard as you enter is the only living human character in the ride. In 2017, a 3-story haunted birdhouse was installed on one of the walls outside the house towards the back. See if you can spot it next time you pass it in the queue line. The name of the female bust who stares you down on your way to the loading area is Aunt Lucretia. The floating trumpet in the seance room has a cloth banner hanging from it with a big old X on it. And you guessed it, that's another nod to Imagineer X Atencio. The ghost hanging by his cane from the chandelier in the ballroom and holding a glass of wine in the other hand is named Pickwick, and he's one of the only named characters in the ride. The organ in the ballroom is the actual organ from the famous Disney film 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's relatively untouched, except for a painted two-dimensional bat just above the keyboard. The sea captain character, which was in very early stages of the development of the story of the Haunted Mansion, wasn't completely scrapped, as he appears as one of the party guests in the ballroom scene. The grandma ghost seen knitting in the rocking chair in the ballroom is a recycled animatronic from the Carousel of Progress. If you were a park guest in the earlier days of the mansion and wanted to take home a souvenir, you could buy miniature sculpted chalk headstones that could be personalized with your name on it. Yeah, there's room for 1,000. The inscription on the metal sundial, which sits atop a column on the front lawn of the mansion, reads, "Grow old along with me, the best is yet to come." I think that's really creepy. Technically, if you add up the number of rooms and areas that you visit while touring the mansion, it comes to 13. They are the foyer, elevator, picture gallery, load area, the corridor of doors, the endless hallway, observatory, clock hall, seance room, ballroom, attic, graveyard, and interior tomb. That fact might be up for question, but I'm sticking to it because I think that sounds about right. The hitchhiking ghosts trying to come home with you at the end of the ride are named Phineas, Ezra, and Gus. Welcome back, foolish mortals. You made it to the other side, so how did you do? Were there any facts in this video that surprised you? Are there any facts I didn't mention that you know about that you'd like to share with us? Put them in the comments below. I'm dying to hear about them. I'm so glad you could join me for this celebration of the Haunted Mansion, my favorite ride at Disneyland. There is more to come. Please take a moment to consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel, and we'll see you next time.